Hi, and welcome back. My name is Sheryl. I'm the owner and dyer of Essence of Autumn Yarn. And in this video, we're going to be talking about mohair. Mohair is such a beautiful, versatile fiber to use. It adds a lot of nice texture and interest when it's combined with other yarns, and it looks great on its own as well. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a mini tutorial showing the steps that I go through in dyeing mohair fibers. So I hope that you enjoy this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please leave a comment and share. Also enable the bell icon. That's a notification so that when I upload new videos, you'll be notified. So if you don't want to miss that content, then just enable that bell icon. So on with the video. I will have a separate video in the future that shows how I prepare yarn for dyeing, but quickly what I've done here is I've put extra ties on the yarn to prevent it from tangling when I work with it. I've pre-soaked the yarn in water overnight, and now it's been arranged in the pans according to the dye color that I'm going to be putting on them. That I change up the way that I arrange the yarn depending on the color I'm going to dye. And as you can see here, I try to be as organized as possible. I have all of my colors laid out in the order that I'm going to apply them on the yarn. I have a separate spoon for each color so that I don't mix the dyes together and contaminate the colors in the jars. And my workspace isn't always this organized, but I do try to do this as much as possible because it just makes the process so much easier. I've also added water to the pans with some acid. And the acid is what's going to make the dye stick to the yarn. And depending on the colors that I'm doing, that ratio of dye and the ratio of water will change. And again, I will have separate videos that show how I, for instance, do speckled dyeing, how I dye solid colors. They all have different techniques, and those videos will explain in more detail. So you can see here that I am working with the dry dye powder, and I'm using a mesh sieve, or what do you call these things, a mesh strainer, to apply the powdered dye. I find that it really gives a fine sprinkle, and that's the look that I like on the yarn. It really helps to define those speckles when I put it through or apply it with the mesh sieve. And you can see that I'm putting a lot of different colors, layering a lot of different colors on the yarn, but it's not turning into a big muddy mess. And that's because I have such a high ratio of acid in the water. And the acid, having a lot of acid along with the heat, it really helps the dye to stick to the yarn immediately. So that allows me to layer on so many different colors without the mixing and bleeding as much. You can see the colors are staying true and bright, and you can see each of the individual colors. And it just really gives a really nice effect. The colors add so much depth and interest to the yarn when I layer them this way. So after the colors have been allowed to set, so I allow them to sit in the heat for a while until the colors have totally been absorbed into the yarn before I flip them. And I can tell that the color is absorbed in the yarn when the water is clear. Then I can flip it and I can repeat those sprinkle process on the other side so that the yarn is evenly colored. I also like to use dye stock or liquid dye and mix that with sprinkled or dry dye powder. I think combining those two techniques really makes for interesting color combinations as well. So you can see I've done that. I've used liquid dye and now I'm adding speckles on top of that. So you can combine different dyeing techniques to get a really interesting, layered, and complex effect in your colors. So again, here I'm using liquid dye, and then I'm applying layers of different colors of speckles on top of that. And the way that I pour the dye onto the yarn also dictates how the color will come out in the end. So again, after all the colors have been allowed to set, then I can flip the yarn to the other side, and you can see there's lots of uncovered yarn or bare areas that I can apply more color. So that's what I'm doing here. And now I will just let those heat and set. And here you can see all of the yarn has been set. The water is clear. And these are ready to be taken out of the pans. They're hot, so they'll need to cool. And then I'll give them a gentle washing in some wool detergent and rinse them out, and then I'll hang them to dry. And that's the exciting part. That's when you really see the true color of the yarn. Everything looks a little bit darker when it's soaking, when it's still wet, but when it is dry, then you really see the effects of your handiwork. And it's always such a nice surprise and a thrill to see these works of art come to life. And they're still steaming, so it's quite hot. I make sure though that the heat isn't too high so that the water is boiling, because you can damage the fibers if the heat is too high. So I keep it at a low heat so that it doesn't even simmer, but it's still hot enough to set that dye. And now you can see some examples of mohair in some projects. Mohair looks great on its own, as I've mentioned, but when you combine it with other yarns, as you can see here, I've paired the mohair with worsted weight yarns or fingering weight yarns, and it just adds another bit of dimension and texture. It looks beautiful. So here's that yarn that is all ready to be hung up to dry. What I've done is I've spun out the moisture as much as possible. So it's not fully dry here, but it's fairly close. And all that's left, it's been washed, and all that's left to do is just hanging it up and let it dry completely. and you can see just how incredible it looks. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, then please like, share, leave a comment too. Let me know what other videos you would like to see in the future. And of course, subscribe. So until the next video, enjoy and bye.